How have auto players performed so far? Puneet Javeri joins in with more details.
Data, which is the retail data essentially, which people like you and me buy from the automakers, gets recorded in this particular time. While the month of November hasn't ended yet, it's thrown up very interesting trends as well. Let's look at the first graphic, because that's where the interesting thing is happening. For two-wheeler specifically, it's been a decent growth on a month-on-month as well as on a year-on-year basis. For November specifically, compared to last November, where Diwali actually fared, it's actually grown 2% more in this particular month as well. That's a key positive as well. Apart from that, we see Honda also one of the biggest gainers. They've solved their supply chain issues, while guys like TVS Motors have also grown 2% and 5% respectively. When we move on and look at the other players as well, like Bajaj Auto, that's one of the key things I want to talk about as well, because Bajaj Auto has shown growth of about 7% this particular time frame. We'll have to move on to the next graphic right now and see that specifically it's on a month-on-month basis a strong growth, despite last month being the Diwali and the Dussehra period as well. We've seen similar growth for someone like a Royal Enfield, while lower, -4%. But what's the something that I want to talk about is Ola Electric. It's been definitely a key push point, key negative as well, because it's lost market share again in this particular month. For the four-wheeler, it's a more grim pitch this time. The sales got for someone like a Maruti Suzuki. Let's move on to the next graphic and show the four-wheeler plate as well. We see that for Maruti, it's been a 32% fall in this particular time frame. That's because Diwali came in November last year, but on a month-on-month basis also, it's quite a steep fall on a 48%. The other key negative is, of course, Tata Motors as well. 40% and 45% degrowth on a month-on-month and a year-on-year basis. Finally, for commercial vehicle makers also, it's not a very pretty picture. They are awaiting, increasing spends from the government as well. That's one of the key things. That's the reason you see the fall across players, with Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland being the biggest losers. And finally, on the tractor makers as well, Mahindra has been outperforming the market. They have been gaining market share as well compared to someone like an Escort. So on the next plate, we'll be able to see that the sales differential of year-on-year and YOY growth for someone like a Escorts as well. So we have to get this moving along and just look at the sales data as well, because we see that for M&M it's a 6% year-on-year growth as well. But taking forward and removing the seasonality, we do see that the two-wheeler makers have outperformed the four-wheeler makers by a strong mile as well. So we look at the next graphic and see specifically when we take October and November sales together, we see that the Dussehra dates, of course, came in October. That's comparable. When we look at the Diwali dates, that was the key contention point, because in this particular year, it was split between October and November this year. So removing that seasonality, let's look at the two-wheeler graphic now. For TVS, for both Bajaj Auto, it's been a very strong period of 14% growth for someone like in Hero. But look at the growth for Honda and for TVS. Let's move on and show Bajaj Auto's data as well, because in this particular, and this is, do note, this is comparing to the same time last year. So the seasonality is taken away. Bajaj Auto slightly slow growth, but this is only domestic, export growth not included. Royal Enfield also shown decent growth, while Ola Electric has shown decent growth. It has lost market share. When you look at the four-wheeler passenger vehicle segment, it's again not a very pretty picture as well. Removing the seasonality is just about a 2% and 3% growth for someone like a Hyundai, also recently listed. But Tata Motors, again, a key negative. Removing seasonality, it's a 7% fall in sales. That's a key contention problem. Someone like a Mahindra has been outperforming the industry, and that continues. So overall, the two-wheeler maker specifically, we are seeing big winners. In the CV space also, nothing much to talk about. It's been a very detrimental and low sales period. And finally, if we can show the last graphic as well for Mahindra as well as Escorts, again a similar trend which we saw playing out, because there's a growth for Mahindra, but Escorts hasn't been able to show that growth. So overall, two-wheelers are big winners here in this particular time frame, removing the seasonality part, while there's still a lot of ground to catch up for the passenger vehicle space.